What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and notifications. Also on Rumble, please follow us on there. We're trying to build up our following here, so more people get a chance to enjoy some of this content and these interviews, like this one I'm about to have right here, catching up with a old friend of mine, Mr. JC Jedediah. What's going on, buddy? The narrator himself.
Hello. Happy to be here with old friends.
Yeah, man. So, like I was saying before we went on, so much I wanna
Yeah.
get into this story of yours because I've got to be a part of growing old and
Yeah.
us growing old together. But you a younger lad than me, and watching it all come to be, man. And
Yeah. We met in 1997, I want to say. I was 14 years old. We met at a bachelor party for Skinny and Rich Moore. It
yep,
was Rich Moore's bachelor party for
Rich
Mushroomhead.
Moore, yeah.
Yeah, and I was maybe 15, 14, 15 years old. And I remember Tom Shaffner and Rick Thomas. But none of us were in Mushroom. This is our first time hanging out really with them. I remember being on that rooftop warehouse, trying not to
Level
throw.
5 or whatever.
Yeah, because I was definitely drinking all the Jello shots off the strippers. Because you're going in ninth grade, 10th grade, you might as well brag about that at school. And I remember I never drank before in my life, but I had to have the strippers. I had to do that. Got a really really nasty cold. I remember that because everybody's making out with the same stripper. At that point, it's a bunch of dirty
Nice.
dudes, kissing girls' chests. It was a real big learning experience for me.
Rites of passage, definitely, man. But yeah, so when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a little bit of a background. So maybe even pre bachelor party at level 5 with Mushroomhead. Like, originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I always told my guidance counselor that I wanted to do something with music and something to do with wrestling. And then she told me I should go make T-shirts because that worked with both of them, and it did. So my dream was always. I still have the frontman musical passion. What's it? You get a quick cameo? No. I still have the passion to be a frontman, a vocalist, all that kind of stuff. But it was always having the imagination to produce wrestling and turn it into something different. So it wasn't until I failed at both of those things over and over again where I realized that it was the city I was doing it in wasn't really conducive to my open-minded innovation, and then I had to come to Orlando, and it took me a while down here. It's I've been down here for 6 or 7 years now, to go through the process of starting a family, working for Walt Disney World. I think I give Walt Disney World a lot of credit and kind of honing me into professional, and I was very lucky that I stayed close friends with EC3 and that WWE just chose to fire a bunch of wrestlers while I lived here. And now here we are.
Yeah. So, like, going back to, the music thing, I mean, your guidance counselor, I guess, kind of did network you and lead you in the right direction
Yeah.
with, because I know, the printing definitely,
Because
helped out
college
big
wasn't
time
there
for
for me.
you.
I didn't see any
Yeah.
reason to go to college. And my guidance counselor's husband was in the Exotic Birds, which turned into Nine Inch Nails. So she was around that and had a really good understanding of my rough home life and gave me the right guidance of how to kind of navigate. And I was already like, by the time I was already running t-shirt jobs out of the school, like I was already selling to bands and I was still in school. Got a little trouble for that, but I definitely was able to start doing it. So like by the time I graduated, it was already like, I started working in a screen printing company like last 2 weeks of high school and met Rick Mayer. I think you've met Rick Mayer in the past, or we call him the Stash. But he became like a really good second father, taught me how to print T-shirts. And then Mushroomhead got signed to Universal, and Skinny walked up to all of us and gave us all jobs. And my job was to make the T-shirts. And, it was nice because utilizing being an entrepreneur, like, having my own T-shirt business, that was currency to pay artists, pay other bands, pay wrestlers, but also it gave me the opportunity to not have to work a full-time job and kind of be a slave to the system throughout my 20s. It was very artist friendly.
Yeah. And I know, you mentioned, still having the passion for the frontman calling, but, talk about like when you first started your first band. Like, I think you were still in high school when you first started playing as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah, it was Tom Shaffner, who's still my creative co-producer musically, and Steve Rauckhorst. We were all part of our first band was Sadist Factory. A lot of play on words.
Yeah.
But first show played at the Flying Machine, opening up for Agents of Oblivion, which is right off the Acid Bath launch. Later in life, I ended up doing their album artwork, so that came around full circle. But it was a lot of Tom Shaffner, great brother of mine, but he was in a band called Choke Slam, and I wanted to be in bands, so I was doing whatever I can to get them gigs to help out the shows. Like I was just desperate to be a part of anything musically. As a freshman, sophomore in high school, but throughout high school, I ended up like doing a few other bands. It wasn't like Sadist, like I just was trying to find my place, and also like look at the year 1999 and 2002, music went through the new metal phase really fast and went back to thrash metal, and hardcore became a thing. Hatebreed came out, and I was lucky, to play in Integrity at like 19. I was 19 years old when I got to play in Integrity. So like you have all those young dreams, and being able to realize something like that at such a young age, it really spoiled me and fucked up my ego for a long time. Because your levels. So I think you got us on the one Stillborn Fest with Hatebreed. You got Dead Even on there.
Yeah.
So you're playing those shows at such a young age. You really have no idea or concept of how lucky you are, because in reality it is a young kids scene. So those opportunities are only going to the young and desperate. They're not going to the tenured half the time.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier this week about putting this interview together and stuff. And I was like, I was brainstorming and writing down like, some of the bands that you worked with. And I, Sadist Factory was on the tip of my tongue, but I forgot that the name of that one. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I
Yeah,
remember totally seeing Flying Machine and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we like I ended up in the band Obstacle Corps for a while too. So I
Yeah.
think I ended up playing in like 17 or 18 bands in my career,
It
including
was Shuriken one or something like that too.
Shuriken, yeah, Ninja Corps we called it. But and that was coming out of like like Victory Records kind of had their big push in the mid 90s, and then Trustkill happened, and you had all that like Orange County stuff. So Shuriken was definitely off the Orange County bands, or even the Florida bands of Poison the Wells, the Shy Halus, being a part of a lot of those waves. I'm very proud of everything I was able to do at Dead Even, as far as like being an innovator and of the waves of metalcore and math metal. Like we were on the forefront of it, hitting on a lot of those things, just never able to get the right breaks.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have to mention your time with Garmonbozia too.
Yeah. So and then that is the time with Garmonbozia, like I just spent like Steve Rauckhorst, who for everybody at home was the singer and bass player and co-conspirator for Garmonbozia, but he sings in Mushroomhead now, and he came down on a family vacation. He was actually at the first CYN live event here in Orlando. So having Steve, just his presence being there and spending the week with him. Also, he's the singer on the opening of the show. So if you watch Free the Narrative 2, Steve's the one singing The Monster in Us All. So having Steve in the room and him watching the, the intro of the show, and EC3's got we've been awakening wrestlers, a whole thing where voluntarily kidnapping wrestlers for their baptism and violence. But having Steve there for that was great. But I've in a perfect world, it would be amazing to still play as that band. I think it's just hard for everybody to do it in this point in their life. But Garmonbozia was definitely, a lot of guys that we all felt we should be in Mushroomhead. And that was the gatekeeper of that organization. We were more, we had access to their studio. Like they did a really good job of letting us have this life and be a part of Mushroomhead. But we started finding our own sound, listening to a lot of their own demos, being influenced by them, using their old keyboards to kind of write our stuff. We met when we brought in Harry Mapes into the fold. He was such a great schmatz too. But when we actually started writing everything, it became more experimental in the fact of like, it was more than just, we wish we were a Mushroomhead. It became more like, wow, there's a lot of Mr. Bungle elements here. Pop, we're, drawing different influences from, Billy Joel to pop music. So we matured as musicians and songwriters through that process. Yes, it started as one thing, living in the shadow and wanting to be a part of this mecca at the time, Mushroomhead. We became Garmonbozia, and it was, once we started doing the dress up shows and gimmick shows, we started garnishing such a different fan base. And it was great because like I had access to working at Peabody. So like, one day we'd be open up for Girl Talk. The next day we'd be open up for Guar. So I was able to take this super unique sound and stage show, and we're going to play with In This Moment one day. The music was so versatile, and we were so innovative on different levels. But we were also very self-indulgent and short-sighted because we were in our 20s, and there's all these egos involved, and a lot of times you get stuck in the especially in Cleveland, it's a local ecosystem where everybody's sharing the same dollar. And with that dollar comes, everybody thinks they can help produce your product and tell you how to do your band and how to do your business. But they're all just sharing the same dollar. They're like, hey, I got $1 at the Richland. I'm going to go take it to the Foundry. Oh, I got $1. Take the same dollar and take it to 5 o'clock. And that's unfortunately what that is. And you just kind of get lost in it.
Yeah. One of my all-time favorite, speaking of dollars, one of my all-time favorite dollar bill birthday bash.
On purpose. Yeah.
That was a good segue. Good teamwork. Was the one that, and what's sad is like, I don't remember much of it because I was pretty inebriated, but I mean, I see the pictures and it brings back some sparks in the synopsis or whatever, but the Garmonbozia birthday bash at, I think it was Hi-Fi at the time. Still one of my all-time favorites, man.
Yeah, I think we played 2.5 hours that night.
Yeah.
It was, and like, I couldn't imagine doing 25 minutes now. So like 2.5 hours at that time, we were just at the peak of being able to, and like, to me, like a lot of those Garmonbozia shows, I tried not to drink because there was so much performance that we had to worry about. But that was definitely one where it's like, all right, after first hour and 20 minutes, we need some more drinks to keep going through. But
yeah, it was a birthday party. It was a bash.
Yeah, and like it's someone like Steve now, because he's playing full time in his tribute band, his cover band. He's used to playing like 3 nights a week, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time. So he's still like, he's at a level that fucking the rest of us can't even compete on.
Yeah. And then I think we had like Porno Holocaust on that bill,
Yeah.
Uncle Scratch's Gospel Revival and stuff.
Yeah.
Still like, one of my all-time favorites. And then, so that Garmonbozia and like Dead Even were kind of like running it around at the same time. And you would hop from each band. But like, talk about like the beginning of Dead Even and what do you think set that apart from all your other projects?
There was, at the end of the new metal era, there was a band called Candy Shop in Cleveland that was like they had a girl on guitar or bass or something like that. And they're all from a suburb called Macedonia. And they all started, we knew who each other were in the scene and stuff, but I wasn't really friends with them at the time. And I remember the guitar player comes up to me at Peabody's one night. He's like, hey, we're going to do a Walls of Jericho cover. And we want you to sing it. And I was like, oh, fucking hey, that's one of my favorite bands. Yeah. I went in my car and learned it, and then went inside and performed it. And they came up to me like, oh, that was your tryout. Do you want to be in our new band? So they were already starting to write more towards the Dillinger Escape Plan, math metal, chaos. And they brought me in, and I, a lot of times I ended up in these bands because I was very connected. Another Dillinger sounding band. I was in North Meadow Park for a while, and that was, a lot wasn't based on my talent and based on my connections. And that's where, we weren't dead even yet, but it was, I wasn't even finding my place as a screamer yet, because that's what it was. It wasn't being a vocalist or singer. You're just screaming. So we started writing together, and I had such an excitement. I want to say my first show, Frank Novidic gave us a show. I wasn't even under the Dead Even name, and we had to have canceling because it was like open up for Ringworm somewhere, and Frank Novidic got us on, Frank Three Gun, Florida Frank, down here in Florida. But he I was able to get us onto shows pretty quick before we're even ready to be playing a lot of these shows. And once we formed Dead Even, it was just being barely 21, 19, 20, coming off of playing in right at the same time of playing in Integrity, just having a lot of opportunities, but really not the content to back up these opportunities. So it wasn't until we started really recording our first full length, our first EP was done with Mushroomhead, and that was a mistake. It was a blend. It wasn't a right blend of quality and style. Like they heard us as one type of thing, and we were something else. My biggest regret in Dead Even was never just taking every bit of my money and giving it to Ben Schigel, because Ben Schigel was turning out every Chimera record, every Waltz Jericho record, and he was a city over for us. I just loved working with Mushroomhead. I thought that was my family. That was my dad. Skinny was my dad, and that's who I just worked with. And it's okay to say this in life, that it was a conflict of style and quality and stuff like that. And they turned out they still turn out a really awesome product out of their studios. Just it all sounds like it's produced there. I needed to take my sound and go over to Ben Schigel. I think I would have had better luck in selling it to labels, to be honest. So it was, we were on the road every weekend, burning ourselves out. But it was a lot of the time where, like, we would get these opportunities. Oh, hey, this guy from Universal, this guy from Roadrunner, and they give us this feedback. And it was at the time I didn't know how to digest it. I didn't know how to understand it. I also didn't have the money to give to a producer to go, hey, this is what Roadrunner Records wants. Can you produce us into that? I was bartering T-shirts with these people and stuff like that. So it's really rough to get in Cleveland, which is a poor city. Everybody's poor, bartering things. You get what you pay for. You know what I mean? And that was I think the most I ever paid for a record was like $1,500. And in reality, records should cost a cheap record's $20,000. And the last record I did record in Cleveland, I did with Rob Arnold from Chimera. He started a studio, and Jim Omarka and I, Jim just quit Chimera, and so did Rob. And they really used the Dead Even guys as a we were the trial of the studio. Like, Rob Arnold did all these great records with Chimera and all these great producers, but he needed to take that knowledge and how does he become a producer with it. And we did a record. We named it Youth Forgotten. The band was called Youth Forgotten. We played a handful of shows in Cleveland, but it was at the end of my life and career in Cleveland. So it was put out, but it was put out half-assed. So there is going to probably be some version of those songs in the future for myself. I just don't, I have no interest in really putting a band together and touring because I'm so busy with Control Your Narrative. But Control Your Narrative has given me the platform to put out my own musical content. So that stuff will kind of be reimagined, and some of the Dead Even stuff might be reimagined for that. But it would be Control Your Narrative music. You know what I mean? I'm going to take what I did in those bands, reimagine it into the product now.
Nice. So, you mentioned how a lot of the bands you're in, it's because your connections and stuff like that. And I know, a lot of, I guess, part of your college and connections would be your time working at like Peabody's and some of the club booking and, booking bands and putting shows on and stuff. What do you want to touch on that part of your life?
And you can't to get paid $9 an hour to pretty much get a college education on how to be a talent buyer, producer, live event coordinator, all that stuff. And then the experiences of being in those green rooms with, all those famous people, whether they're behind the scenes people of agents and managers to, I think you were there the night I got paid to babysit Slash for a night and made sure that no one gave him fucking drugs. That's a true story. I got $100 to sit there and tell everybody, no, you can't give your drugs to Slash. And that was Gilby Clark. Gilby Clark played a free show, and the tour manager was Brett Michaels' tour manager, so we already had a relationship with him. He came in, he goes, some friends are coming by tonight. I started,
because I think Velvet Revolver had played somewhere else that night.
Next night. No, Velvet Revolver was the next night, so it was their day off.
Okay.
So Duff and Slash came up and did. They did It's So Easy and Mr. Brownstone with Duff singing. And then, you know, I was wearing a Glassjaw shirt with Michael Jackson on it, and Slash goes, "That's my friend." I go, "I know." And we traded shirts, and Slash has my Glassjaw shirt to this day. And the next day, they gave us all access to Velvet Revolver and spent more time with us. That even had a "You Can Be Mine" cover. I remember you always.
Oh yeah, loved it.
Yeah, we did the Guns N' Roses. I remember giving it to Slash, and Slash saying, how many of these have you sold? I'm like, not enough to give you any money, you know, because we're a local band. But he listened to it and sat there and gave me a full review the next night, because he's like, "Hey, your guitar player nailed my parts." And I was like, well, ironically, I went and got a guitar player that just came out of was it MIT in LA. I had like a guitar player come in and play the exact parts. So nothing against, my guitar players at the time. I wanted to sound right. So I literally brought in a different guitar player to play that. And Slash was really tickled about it. But Peabody's gave me the opportunity to, really hone my craft of putting together these big, metal hardcore events. At that point, it really gave me, that's how I started as a wrestling promoter. I was able to start AIW, Absolute Intense Wrestling, out of Peabody's. Ray Rowe became my partner, Ivar in WWE now. And Ray Rowe was a security guard at Peabody's. And it was like, I was in and out of the indie world, and he was becoming an indie wrestler. And it was like one of those things where like, we knew we can do it better. As if I'm still trying so effing hard to do wrestling elevated and better. It started in 2005 as a concert promoter in Cleveland. And, through that process, I got cocky. And after, Peabody sold from one owner to the other, I, didn't see eye to eye with him, and thought he was I still, that's another reason why I moved away, competing, everybody's fighting over the same scraps of a garbage heap. You know what I mean? But, being able to then go and take my relationship with Mushroomhead and develop from, doing shows I did really well promoting shows in, I used to just look at where hot topics were in Ohio and booked Mushroomhead with whatever radius of a hot topic. And I made more money, and so did the band made more money than if I did a Cleveland show proper, where it was super expensive to do. I did better in those smaller markets, where they have nothing else to do. Than to go to a metal show. And of course they want to go to a metal show. They're bored in these, Canton. What else is they going to do in effing Canton? But I was able to build these Halloween Mushroomhead shows with the Agora, and I was able to take, what was a 1,500 to 1,600 sell and sell them out to 2,200, 2,300, and develop these massive events. And it was because I developed this golden ticket idea that them fucks still all try to do. And they never, once they stopped doing shows with me, in Cleveland, they try to kind of adapt it, and it never was the same. The same thing as like when I left Garmonbozia. I have an artistic touch as a producer that without me, you will notice the difference. Yeah. Could the people that get hired be good live event promoters and good promoters and do decent marketing, but they weren't artists. And that's the big difference. And as I fight in the landscape in wrestling, I hate the term wrestling producer, because that makes me the equivalent of the guy that the wrestling producer in wrestling is someone that, gave 25, 30 years to the business, and now they're a backstage agent to make sure that they keep the programming the same and reprogram. Where I'm an artist, I'm not backed by a billionaire. I have a great roster of wrestlers that want to come work with me, but it's because I'm an artist and not because I'm trying to give them a payday. And that's where I think I've always, and it took this part of my life to see that what I did was elevate. I saw it different. I gave a different product, whether it was a Monday night at Peabody's or a sold out show at the Agora. My fingerprint was different, and it was my own. It was original.
Yeah, and we touched on it a few times, a mutual love of both of us, professional wrestling. Let's talk about your kind of growth in the Cleveland wrestling area. I think like even EFW at the beginning, breaking into that.
If EFW has a school, and they're going to start doing events here soon. Those guys are back to business, and I support everybody trying to make a difference and do their own thing. EFW, so I 1999 I started with EFW, and it was, we were backyard wrestling fed with it. So we're untrained wrestlers that rented a ring. But in the wrestling boom in the 90s, off the Stone Cold and Attitude Era, we were able to always draw 600, 800, 1,000 people. But a lot of that content, you go back, it was very insensitive, and I think that because of the I'll say this to his face, I think that Paul Heyman was great in the 90s as like, everything in the 90s was middle fingers, offensive sold. People went to events to be offended. Dennis Leary was an asshole, and we paid for it to see. But you look back, and now we're in a different culture, now where everything is more sensitive, and you have to be sensitive. Where a lot of that back then, we power bombed a stripper through a table. Of course, we threw a Christian tag team in a casket, lit it on fire. You know what I mean? Because that's what we were raised on. ECW and Vince McMahon raised us on creating offensive characters, and we like Pantera, White Zombie, everything was so that, and we came out of that. Marilyn Manson, huge one, controversy. Marilyn Manson was the king of controversy, and being able to recreate that. Where nowadays, like, is there a lot of that artistic stuff I regret? Absolutely. But to me, I didn't realize I was doing performance art. Yeah. I thought it was pro wrestling, but really I was going out there and, attacking social, like irregular, like things that are messed up in the world. And we were out there trying to act it out. And
I remember coming to one of those shows, and Colin to this was Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. And, and that was giving out, envelopes full of anthrax to the crowd and stuff like that. And I remember you're fresh out of Iraq, and I remember you being like, and it hurting you. And I still have that memory of your face. And I was like, fuck, like that's, you didn't like.
I look back now and I laugh, but
yeah. We were sneaking into 21 over shows of Lords of Acid, and they got strippers on stage and stuff like that. So like we were just so exposed to so much offensive adult stuff, and it was the norm. It was the same. We're the same generation that, like, we'd ride our bikes. If we knew someone that could rent us a rated R movie, god damn it, we were going to go get every horror movie and watch it at home. You know what I mean? And that's just our culture shift. Now, the kids have this, and they can go and freaking, they have a 5-year-old has access to these offensive things. You know what I mean? That's the world we live in as parents now, and having to
tricks with dicks that put mine to shame.
Yeah, and it's such, we had to work so hard to get to it and be able to perform it. We thought that's what drew people in. You know what I mean? Like Eric Bischoff, controversy creates cash. Nowadays, the controversy is a little bit different. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, the cancel button is, everybody wants to cancel something for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And then, they don't realize that, there isn't, there's a big difference between, there's certain levels of canceling, and I'm noticing that people have to, there needs to be a therapeutic educational process. It's not canceling. Your life isn't over. No one should crawl in a hole and kill themselves. Actually, it's like, hey, where was the mistake made? How do you learn from that? Because if people don't learn from their mistakes, they're never going to be able to teach the lesson to the next person making them.
Exactly. Or if we're not even allowed to have come to the same table and have the conversation with opposing views, it's like, we're shutting down people that we don't agree with. So we're just going to shut you down. But if we can't come to the table together and talk, how are any of us going to learn and grow?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's really what is I think so many people, there's a big difference between, there's a portion of culture right now that their God is the internet, and they live by the internet. Even though they don't realize that 98% of it is a work. Like, it's a pro wrestling term. Like, everything's a scam. If you're looking at something like my conversation right now, because it's on a screen, you're being scammed. Everything's a scam. You know what I mean? If it's produced, it is a scam. You know what I mean? And that's the problem of people just not disconnecting with that. But yeah, the wrestling world, and then starting AIW, and like, I try to hype the positivity, not the negativity. And, being a wrestling promoter at 23, if there was a 23-year-old kid coming up to me with the same ambitions, we would say, thanks for the money, and we just tear that kid apart behind his back. They should never have let me be a promoter that early, but I had those ambitions, and I learned from it. And doing a monthly show and then going on the road inside the first year and a half, I only made it with AIW for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I went and started Firestorm Pro. And I'm really proud of what I do at Firestorm Pro. But through that process, I also realized that I couldn't survive as an artist putting on these events in such a poor city. You know what I mean? Everything was a free event in the late 2000s. You know, you couldn't get anybody to pay for a concert. You know, the economy was bad. And it really did eat me alive, and it put me in a bad depression because I had such a passion for doing it. But like, you know, inside like my career in my 20s, you know, I stopped doing that even to focus on wrestling. I get kicked out of Garmonbozia because I got us a record deal and they didn't want to take it, and I threw a fit. They kicked me out, you know what I mean? And it was just all immaturity, you know, social immaturity and business immaturity. But then doing the wrestling thing, it just I realized that I needed to be where the epicenter was, and it wasn't in Cleveland, you know. And it took me going through, and like at that point, and I'm not really proud of my days in my last 2 years in Cleveland and living up there, because I was just in such an emotional depression because I couldn't keep any relationship strong. And in reality is because your environment is, you're surrounded in the underbelly club scene, you become your environment.
Yeah.
And I saw it when I worked at Peabody's, and I got away from it. And then when I took over the Foundry, I became that environment again. And it's just, unfortunately, it is a cult. It is everybody, hey, it's all incestuous. We're sharing the same dollar, we're sharing the same girl. And that is just what it is. And it eats you alive. Getting out of it, and like, dude, I still go through Cleveland depressions and Cleveland withdrawals because as I'm going to do my first live event there next week, it's just I have unfinished business, and that's how I feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. But is that unfinished business nostalgia? And that shouldn't be. You know what I mean? But that's what my history is. There's all nostalgia. So going in there and doing my CYM, my Control Your Narrative event, where it's like we're out to actually destroy our past for a better tomorrow. And it's we're not doing this for the fans, we're doing this for ourselves. It's like this is going to be a very therapeutic show for me, because I'm going in there and it's not like I'm going in there and it's like, because it is going to be in the AIW ring. It's going to be in the Odeon, which I played with Chimera Christmas, sold out in that room. Like our main event is Big League John McChesney, who was the Firestorm champion, but we're going to fucking kill him. We're going to beat the shit out of him. He's not going to be that anymore. You know what I mean? And this is his path going through that. Braun Strowman's going to rip Big League in half, and we're going to find out who the real John McChesney is. And that's what we're going to go and do, is really just, I could open the show with burning the Firestorm title and, saying burn my X face mask, and this is my dead even thing, but then it makes it about me, and it's my job is, as the narrator, I am the Wizard of Oz. I'm behind the curtain. I'm not the front man of this, but I still do, like, I still think there's going to have to be some shows where I play in a band with Tom Shaffner and Steve Rauckhorst, and we play songs from our past, but we've written so much in the last 2 years that I definitely see a CYN, a Control Your Narrative live show, where we play the music of Control Your Narrative, because it's really, really effing good. We're hitting some of our best quality of music right now. We're in our peak, and it's just nonstop good songs being churned out. But I do realize that performing in Cleveland, I need to kind of acknowledge some of the dead even Bozia past.
Yeah. And I like what you said, and I hear the growth and the maturity and everything in you. We're both dads,
yeah,
and my girls are much older than yours, but what we learn through our journeys, we try and pass on so they don't have to make the same mistakes. Yes. And the surroundings, the people we surround ourselves with, we're going to be just like them, mm-hmm. And to grow, sometimes you got to bust out of that cocoon. And I'm with you, man. I might still be here locally, but I'm not there in that scene anymore. Where my journey's taken me, and I'm in a much happier place. And eventually, I like to maybe come down to a much happier place. My youngest is getting ready to graduate, so it might be sooner rather than later, but yeah, that's something that I try and share with my daughters all the time. It's like, okay, look at your friends. What are they doing? What do they like to do every day? What do they like to do? What kind of goals or ambition do they have? Well, if they don't have any, then you don't want to stay. I mean, nothing against your friends, not to be a dick, but you want to surround yourself with people that share your vision or where you're trying to go. And it sounds like that's where you're at now, which brings us now to, what you're doing with Control Your Narrative. And dude, I've known your wrestling love and passion since we've grown together. It's like getting together at Harpo's for pay-per-views back when.
Yeah, we've watched a lot of wrestling together. Yeah.
And over the old house in Hinckley at the farm, man, the party we had, the wrestling parties, and some of the other ones I'm not allowed to mention because I'm banned from. But but yeah, it's just like
there was the one summer party where you brought Steve Eggs, and Steve Eggs fell asleep under a car. That was pretty good. There was a lot of that because
on fire, and the dude's driving in playing Stone Cold and everything, and
those the having a 9-acre farm in the middle of the country in your late 20s, and with my brother who Jake got out of Iraq and his marriage fell apart, and he went through his PTSD from post Iraq on that farm, and there was some dark days, but a lot of everybody, especially listening to this, former military, know that when that party of when you get out is that first year is just all party, you know what I mean? And we had a lot of good times with that. But yeah, with wrestling, it was, I remember watching, with Tony Erba in your basement, watching a couple pay-per-views and stuff like that. So it was like, what was the question? I was reminiscing. Sorry.
Just just talking about, you knowing your passion and your love for wrestling that I got to witness firsthand. And now, I mean, here you are now at this. Did you ever imagine getting to this scale where you're working with the talents that you're working with now? I mean, you've had a long friendship with EC3 throughout the years, but I mean, bringing in all these other guys, have you ever?
And so there's a journey to that. I came here, it was marriage, and, I married, and that's what brought me here is marriage. Luckily, we created a great life together as far as a child is concerned, but actual life we did not create together. And, we just had different ambitions in life, and mine was to be a wrestling promoter or producer. And that's why I was in Orlando. And because of my connection to EC3, I got to be here when he won the TNA world title from Kurt Angle, and just being a fly on a wall in a couple, hotel rooms or just backstage at events. And also NXT was just on fire and hiring everybody, and just being able to be at those tapings and just that first 2015 was such a good year of growth for wrestling, and being able to be there and just witnessing it all. But as my journey kept on happening, I was realizing real quick that nobody either knew or gave a flying fuck who I was or who I was up in Cleveland as a wrestling producer or promoter. Nobody gave my talent a time of day. And, I started training as a wrestler, did some training, learned a lot in that situation. But I also realized that I wasn't built size-wise to do it, but it gave me an option of how to actually communicate, how to produce wrestling. But I started writing a pilot, a book, and all based in the wrestling world, and becoming better as a writer and trying to understand how to build things. So instead of studying, tape of, how did Dusty Rhodes do this, or how did Vince McMahon do this, I started actually, how does Stephen King do this? What does Neil Gaiman do? What does why do I like David Lynch so much? Why is David Fincher and Trent Reznor together so fucking amazing? And those are some of the things I started looking outside the box and taking my instead of my time of my post-divorce depression and my child moving to a different state, taking that as an opportunity to make this work. And between Disney World and EC3, that became possible. And working my way up in Disney World, I became a server at the Brown Derby at Hollywood Studios. So I'm obviously with the environment and the company you keep, you can, as if you're a fine dining server, you're actually working with people that have house payments and families rather than, working in a bar nightclub situation where everybody's, sleeping with each other. So I was able to get like better environment, better people to be around and help me grow and not let me fail. And that was a big thing where Cleveland was set up for failure. My first day at Disney, my leader looked at me, we're going to set you up for success. And no one ever said that to me in my life. And taking that and then going into the wrestling world. And it was definitely, where my advantage was creating a safe place for wrestlers to create. Unfortunately, I had to do it in a sense of like, we're going to start a podcast or a YouTube show, because I was working with WB wrestlers under contract on TV, but I wasn't, as long as I did non-wrestling content, I was able to start producing with them and working with them. And it was killing me because my goal, I wanted right away. I had 2 different characters to be managers. I had all these different things for wrestling, but every time I went into the indie wrestling world, it still was stagnant. It still was a purgatory. It still sucked. It was the same thing I quit doing up in Cleveland. It was just here. So breaking, and then, getting in and seeing what they went through, what my friends went through at TNA or Impact, and WWE, and hearing what they went through, I started realizing that if I showed up, number one, I'm not a yes man. Number 2, I'm alternative thoughts all the time. Like all I think about is how can you make this different? Not what can I do to make it the same? So I would never survive in those worlds. And then the pandemic happened, which, for an artist, it was a paid vacation. You know what I mean? It was an opportunity, not a vacation, a paid opportunity. I'm not a big fan of, living off the government, but I had the option to not work for a month and a half, and I'm writing books and I'm coming up with all these different concepts. I'm running, at this point, myself and EC3 are running a screen printing company, and it turned out that I was an essential worker because it was just 2 of us. So I didn't have to lose income too at the same time. I could still earn, I could still work. I could still, everybody, even they're stuck in their house, they still want to wear t-shirts for their freaking TikToks. So I was still selling t-shirts left and right. It was really a blessing to have that where the world shut down and I was able to focus on starting a whole new infrastructure. Then WWE releases, they call it like Black Wednesday or whatever, and EC3 is one of them. And at this point, we were already starting to sell a Tyler Durden character to WWE, but it went on deaf ears. They didn't listen to anything he said. He was trying left and right, and to reimagine what the top 1% would turn into, and essentially he was also doing it in his personal life because he unfortunately got a couple concussions. He was on sideline with that big WWE penthouse life. He was realizing that as much as he wanted to be the American Psycho, he wasn't that in real life. He wasn't any of those things. And he was playing all those because he got casted as Ethan Carter. He got casted as the top 1%. He wasn't that. And the moment he got released, we went and got freeec3.com. We had the logo ready to, within a day, and he dropped his promo that day where his head shaved, and we were able to use his 90-day, I'm working. He's still under contract with WB for 90 days, but we were able to use that opportunity to create content. And in that process, we created Control Your Narrative. Before this is, as, mask mandates weren't even happening. So the world's kind of like confused. Can we leave our house? Can we not? What can we do? We can't. And we were able to find a mechanic shop. We put an effing ring in it and we filmed his first match. So when he was released, we had his first match ready to go. And it went right on, and Impact Wrestling put it right onto their product. And it was so different, in fact, that WB took the aesthetic that we did and created a Raw Underground. They built the set of our set in Winter Park. And, it was, which turned into just pretty much, Shane McMahon. It turned into Wayne's World, where it was very like, are we looking at Wayne's basement or what are we looking at? And I think that's why Raw Underground didn't work, because they sound staged our bullshit. You know what I mean? So it was such a product, but we then were able to sit down with Matt Cardona, and we plan on doing a feature full length, Free the Narrative 1, and we filmed it. There was a wrestling school next to a bowling alley, very Big Lebowski, but it was a black box. It was a beautiful soundstage, and we brought in a whole set, the whole lighting, and it was my first time doing. So it's February of 2021. Producing, writing, and filming a full-length movie. And we were able to, in the pandemic, utilize the fact that couldn't have fans, and we, instead of fans, we had projects, and instead of having extras or projects, and everybody had a purpose in the meeting, and we started creating our own universe that stood aside from Vince McMahon's wrestling world. Because no matter if there's AEW, WWE, we all still exist in Vince McMahon's world. This is his universe, no matter what. That's just how it is. And until you turn that programming off and create your own DC, which is what we're doing, and we can exist in that world too. You know what I mean? But and then it was Adam Shearer, was Braun Strowman being released, and he was our partner on the printing business and our YouTube show, and he unfortunately couldn't be a part of CYN at that point because he was in WB, but he was at all the shoots. He was helping produce everything. He was just off camera. The night before he was released, we were like, hey, you got 9 months left in your contract. Let's start planning a narrative for you and working towards that, using 9 months to build for that. And he got released the next day, and we had 90 days then to rush out a movie. And it's been off to the races ever since. But it's also trying to exist in a world that's programmed for a certain type of wrestling. So we just started doing live events. And then how do you make the Control Your Narrative cinematic art stuff work for a live event, and vice versa? And then how do you do those live as a pay-per-view? And like, it's constantly learning, but we do realize, and the amount, what the end of the year this year looks for us and into 2023, I'm not saying we're competing with AEW or GCW, or we're already surpassing GCW, but WB and stuff like that. We don't see us as competition. We're actually carving our own place for success. And that's definitely what's been, the infrastructure is happening right now.
Yeah, gotcha. And going back on something you touched on, going through your with your child moving to another state, going through that dark time, and then even talking about EC3 getting let go, and the time he was going through suffering from concussions and stuff like that.
We were going through it together. Yeah. We were just a fucking mess.
The power of, like you said, surrounding yourself with the right people to walk with you through those dark times, to be by each other's sides, the importance of that, the importance of networking, but always being like, around positive people that are helping you grow, or that have, similar visions or whatever. But, I'm sure you're grateful. I mean, it was a hard thing to go through, I'm sure, and that, especially the times away from your child.
Yeah.
But to have this outlet and to have these people that support your goal and vision, and just, I don't know. I just wanted to touch on how important that is. Your circle is always important.
Yeah. And like, that is the one thing that I love the most about Control Your Narrative, is we are building a family of it's a brotherhood, and definitely a brotherhood in the fact that we're not here to create the best wrestlers on the planet. We're here to help each one of these people become better people.
Yeah.
And that's what we realize. And that's the time that EC3 puts into the projects, and he takes talent relations as he is relating to the talent. He takes it seriously. Like, we're not like our goals isn't to like, everything's up front, everything's reality. If the reality hurts, it's because the truth is there to help you become a better person. And if you can't take that, then this isn't the place for you. You know what I mean? That's 100% what we are. We are that model of Fight Club, where we're a room full of men that need, it's the line from Fight Club. If our fathers were a model for God and our fathers failed, what does that tell you about God? And I always took that seriously, as far as in not in a religious sense, just in the sense of, who is your God? You know what I mean? And your father growing up is your God. And you and I you've had great times with my dad. But he had a child way too young. He had 3 kids way too young, and never. It's all generation. I could say the same thing about my grandfather. It is what it is. But it's nowadays it's taking these wrestlers that are confused on these dirt shit indies that are just meant to bleed them dry of any hope and dreams. And then, because, every level of this living hell that is the wrestling industry is meant to suck your hopes and dreams dry for the god of the company. And that's just what it is. We're not going to be that. We're going to be like we are equal. You know what I mean? Adam Shearer is just as equal as the guy opening. You know what I mean? As far as how we treat each other. You know what I mean? We're there to help bring everybody. We're looking forward to opening up our own wrestling school where it's how do we now hone the in-ring thing and building everybody up to and it's you know, and you could say it's a cult. It is. You know what I mean? It is everybody. And like, you know, all you gotta do is like the front porch at the print shop here is someone just knocking new every day. And then you see it in the that's just the low to mid tier talent. But like, you know, we have Killer Cross, we have Austin Aries, we have Weston Blake, which Weston Blake, it was Wesley Blake for WWE, but he was always in tag teams and factions. He's one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the fucking world. And he's one of those guys that like I get chills editing his matches because I'm so excited to do it because I'm like, what's he going to come up with next? And you know, we're also focusing on, you know, not build it like we don't want to play into what the internet says we should be. We're going to be who we say we should be.
Well, what I love too, and you like texted me to check it out, was the whole thing with Adam when he came in, dealing with the mental health aspect of, you know, what this business can do to a person's self-worth and stuff like that. You know, so that I thought that was beautiful, and love the cameo back there. I know. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the bomb to drop because he's going to see who you're talking to. And
oh no, he's already dropped it a fucking couple times.
How you doing?
Good. You guys are doing well.
I'm not marking out.
No, well, I mean,
you don't have to.
yeah, he's still producing, so he's making sure that I don't say anything that'll get us canceled. No, it's actually, hopefully, because this will probably be the first time anything Control Your Narrative is on Rumble. You know what I mean? So that might come back. This is going to be on Rumble.
I thought Rumble sponsored us.
Yeah. According to the internet, Rumble sponsored us. So
no, what I'm really trying to, like when JC gets to go off on, especially Raw Underground. That fucking fires me up.
I've had a couple episodes that YouTube has taken down and put me on timeout, so that's why I have Rumble and BitChute and all those side things.
Well, at least you use Twitter again.
Yeah, and it's we got caught up in all that stuff, and it was a competing wrestling company that is a nationwide wrestling company that has a network deal. Was running the same venue as us in Dallas on the same night, but it was an event center with different doors and different addresses. But that was a concept that their business, they were too insecure as businessmen to handle. So when we wouldn't move our show, the next day there was a Reddit post called CYN Anonymous, and it connected us to everything strong right wing, including that we were being financially backed by the My Pillow guy. It was written in such a jest of comedy. But unfortunately, there's a good amount of wrestling fans that use Twitter to talk about it. Unfortunately, they are the ones that want to cancel everything. So they took it to a point, and it really affected our business, and it hurt us terribly because we also don't use the word wrestling in our name. We use the word narrative, and narrative is a term that is used by media on both left and right side to argue their points. And it's in such media right now. When I came up with the Control Your Narrative stuff with EC3 we said control your narrative because I wanted him to start his own podcast. I'm like, you need to control your narrative, because I didn't want him going on all these other podcasts where they were going to do the interview. I was like, you need to control what you're saying. And he was like, that's a good catchy term. And it became a thing where wrestling is storytelling. It is poetry. It's artistic poetry. And unfortunately, the wrestling world hates any of those terms, because these kids just want to eat chicken fingers and have honey mustard. They don't want to fillet. They don't want to try a French cuisine or anything like that. I love culinary arts, and I want to create art myself that makes you feel and think. Whether if the feeling hurts you or messes with you, that's why art is there. It's to help you grow as a person. And if you want the same programming 13 hours a week giving you the same bullshit, then go watch it. You know what I mean? then we're not here for you. I'm not going to dumb down my art just so you can digest it, because your body isn't used to anything other than fucking McDonald's drive-through. I'm not doing it. Go get fucked. Tony Khan can give you that shit. You know what I mean? Go to AEW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here we are.
Yeah.
That's what I've been waiting for.
Oh, the shit talking. Yeah, I'm not as much of a shit talker these days.
The soapbox, but now it's called the narrative. Remember the soapbox?
Yeah, soapbox. Yeah, and it's one of those. It's just one of those things of like, we're gonna die on our sword. We're not gonna. It's just what we're gonna do. And part of that is being brave about the mental health too. As to go back to what Braun or Adam was saying in the interviews. I've been doing these things called Project Narrative, and we just started filming them for the Free the Narrative 3, where it's like an AA meeting, where I start off the day where I give everybody an opportunity to talk about who they are as a person and what mistakes they are in the business and what the business did to them. And we're going to release it as a pre-show to Free the Narrative 3. The film is coming out this summer. We're still in the wrestling end of it's been filmed, but we're still filming all the cinema story stuff. But being able to give the opportunity of doing an AA meeting where everybody kind of like admits their faults and what they want to be better about themselves, and it gives everybody the opportunity in the room that I have a room full of 35 people to create a wrestling film in. It gives them that option where like we're all equal. It doesn't matter if you were the world champion or you're in the first 3 months of the business. We're here to make this a place where you feel safe. And we have 2 wrestlers that are former military. I have 1 wrestler, 11 Bravo, and that's why I contacted you privately about having and I did it in Dallas where we came out and I don't want to give a story. I'm going to let you see it because I'm not going to tell you a story yet. I want you to see it live. But it's pretty amazing. And when we got caught up in cancel culture, it was before our first live event in Orlando, and about 20 minutes before we opened, Adam Shearer, Braun Strowman walks up and he goes, "We need the national anthem." And I was afraid because you can't be American anymore. You know what I mean? You can't nobody it's unfortunately you can't publicly be an American without somebody complaining and bitching and moaning about it. Oh, you're an American. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's not make America great. I'm just saying, no, just the basic, this is where I geographically am from. And we did it, and we threw it together, and I walk out there and my first live event. So, I'm nervous. I haven't done anything since Cleveland Wrestling in 2012 was my last live event. So here I am walking out, doing something I never thought I'd do again, opening the show. And the way I worded it is, and how I always worded it is like, we're going to play the national anthem to pay respect to the people who gave up their freedom to give us the freedom to do wrestling. Because unfortunately, this is a pleasure. This is a leisure that we get to do wrestling. You know what I mean? It isn't wrestling isn't about survival. You know what I mean? And there also isn't it is a performance in a sense, but it's also a fight. It's in all that stuff. So we do it. I take my hat off. We start the national anthem. 450 people take their hats off and they do it with me, and I start crying. And after being sucked into Twitter trying to make up rules to control your narrative, they're trying to control my narrative. Here I was seeing that the fact that America still exists and it's alive, and it isn't about politics or anything like that. It's actually the brass tacks of, holy shit, this is what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I got to share a story with you too. So last year when everything started slowly opening back up, the Incarceration Music Festival we got here in Cleveland. So I went there, and it was on.
Oh, Dan Jansen called me. I want to film in there.
All right. We on the 9/11, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 was the Saturday that the festival was going on. So they did the national anthem there. I didn't know what to expect because you still had to. That was back when people either had to show a test or a passport or wear a mask or not wear a mask and stuff like that. And a bunch of drunken, wild metalheads and music fans,
Yeah.
Well, they came out on stage and like, we'd like to have a moment of silence for all those we lost on 9/11. And dude, you could hear a pin drop, thousands of people. And then there was complete silence. And then this girl came out to sing the national anthem. Everybody took their hats off. We're standing up. Dude, I had the tears rolling down my face because
chills.
you believe all the crap, out there on not just social media, but the media in general. You know, everybody hates, us, but no, man, there was thousands of metalheads, punks, everybody showing that respect, silence. And then the national anthem, dude, I teared up, and I met a police officer there that was there on 9/11, a New York City police officer, became friends with him. So that was, dude, it gave me hope. It gave me hope, and there's nothing wrong. Keep doing what you guys are doing, man. Like you said, I loved, you mentioned kind of like it being like an AA meeting, my journey, how far I've come along from where I was to where I am today, and the mental health stuff. And that's why I'm like really connecting with what you guys are doing. You're being real and being raw. And I loved seeing, you see this monster Adam showing his emotions, dude. I'm in meetings with other grown men where I can go there and I can cry about something I'm struggling with or whatever, and we could be real and we could come alongside each other and build each other up. And that's a beautiful thing that I see you guys are kind of letting people know through your art too.
It's something that it's original to us. It is original to us, and it's something that I can 100% say that if anybody in any other wrestling company is doing anything for mental health, it is a PR scam. And I'll say that to their faces. They're not spending the time like we do, you know what I mean? And making a difference in that, with the actual personal wrestler, you know what I mean? And that's why we're creating an army, you know what I mean? We're creating loyal soldiers that can go out there and represent us in a professional manner in any opportunity they get.
Now, goals going forward. What kind of goals do you have for yourself? Not just control your narrative, but yourself as an artist.
Shoot. I mean, I think every time I finish something, I want to do the next one better. You know what I mean? Right now, it's just. I think as an artist, I'm going to be fine. And I think I'm going to continue to keep on growing as long as I find time to still do music. That's what keeps it healthy. You know what I mean? That's what Control Your Narrative gives me, that opportunity to do that. Because if you only have so much time to work in music, at least it's something for Control Your Narrative a lot of the time. And I'm getting to create it with my best friends, and everybody's just operating on such an amazing level because everything across the board, Control Your Narrative, is selfless. It's not selfish. From the wrestling to the music, everybody's just so selfless and just gives them the best and doesn't ask for anything in return. And it's how we're making it. But personally, it's being able to grow as a leader. I'm not trying to say I'm competing with all the other people that run all these other companies, but I have to be, as executive producer of Control Your Narrative, be able to lead professionally and being able to run our business the right way. And, I have a whole team I'm working with. We have a management team in New York. We have an agent LA and stuff like that. And being able to navigate all those meetings and make the right decisions for all these people working with us. And, we're just working on so many different, we're in the metaverse now, and being able to navigate all those things as the right leader and making the right decisions now to also protect keeping away, because it's wrestling, it's entertainment. There's always going to be some fucking some scumbag. What's the fat character from 300? What's that guy?
I don't
Hunchback.
remember.
Greg Kelly looking motherfucker. He just could, but you have those in every bit of entertainment, and you have to be able to take our history of dealing with scumbags or being scumbags in Cleveland and being able to see it coming a mile away. And you know what I mean? Because there's every moment, every opportunity that we get at Control Your Narrative, we're already operating on such a level that I never expected in my wildest dreams to be on. So I have to make sure that I can get us to the next one, get us to the next one, get us to the next one. You know what I mean? And that's where I guess it's working, but it's, I'm lucky. I have a really great girlfriend. I have a divine partner, a great girlfriend. That's my life partner. She helps, she's definitely our witch mama to Control Your Narrative. And she kind of helps keep all of us there and keep our mind straight. And, I'm very lucky to have that.
Yeah. It's awesome. I like how you mentioned, being able to sense the scumbags coming and referring to even our history, of who we were before we tried to develop into better men, because, as as you'll find out, yours is still little, but being a father of daughters, man, we got to smell the old us when they start approaching and know how to, nip that in the bud before they start sniffing around.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, she has two, I had two stepdaughters too. And they were both, everybody was evenly placed in age. So like how I had to like kind of I had to like rush, become a father, boot camped into father, like right away, here, you're at boot camp. Now you're in war. You know what I mean? And, and I chose to jump in feet first like that. And end up being potentially my downfall. Cause there was so much maturity and stuff that I had to grow as an adult that I didn't realize, and I was post party guy. Like, I went from, like the riot happened at the Foundry to pull me out of that scene, people getting shot at my event. I was married with a kid inside of a calendar year. I got married on the date. So like when you go from that atmosphere and then out of nowhere, you're living in a cul-de-sac and you're doing family life. It was rough. It was so rough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I learned so much of like, my own mistakes in that world. And now, fortunately for my daughter, she now has, a great situation with her mother, but also she has this life with me and Sarah down here that is just, she gets these benefits of both, and the checks and balances are there. And, it's really been very fruitful in the development process, because she's 6. She's just learning how to manipulate. She's just learning that she's cute and how to be cute to get your way and stuff like that. And she's already, what are the worst kids? She's in kindergarten. Who's the baddest boy in this class? He's my best friend. You know what I mean? And what can I get him to do and blame on him? And like, she's learning all that stuff. So it's, remotely parenting has its challenges, but I'm so frequently in the situation and she's here enough. I always could just love to have her more, even if like hopefully the universe or God or whatever, anything, the movement of the world brings her back to Central Florida, especially with my growth. I'd love for my daughter to be a part of this day to day, and you know what I mean, because I don't even think my daughter even realizes half the time who her Uncle Mike is. You know what I mean? Like we show her stuff, but I don't think she even has the concept of it. And she's not interested in wrestling. I hope she never gets interested in wrestling. I don't want her ever interested in wrestling. I don't want her around the scumbags of the business,
Gotcha. Well, we went over our original 30 minutes.
Yeah. I booked you for 30, but it's okay.
No, I appreciate you giving me the time.
I pushed off Killer Cross for you for a half hour. So, not to brag.
Nice. I appreciate that, man. And so before we get ready to wrap up, let me ask you some of the questions I normally ask
okay.
the people I have on here. And then real quick, congrats on that IMDb spot now. You really have made it.
Yeah, that was I had different approaches releasing Free the Narrative as a film and trying to do the film aspect in the film industry, which I think we still might get to eventually. But with us signing with Pro Wrestling PWTV, it gives us a great opportunity to do our films within a wrestling app. You know what I mean? And, we're already well over 9,000 subscribers inside of just a month, on the app. And I actually am negotiating and developing a future for me, and as far as a creative head of creative for that network, outside of just Control Your Narrative. I'm going to be producing and filming a movie with Killer Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux. It's going to be a horror movie in their own little universe, so it's not a wrestling movie. It's wrestlers making a movie.
Nice.
And the trailer for that's already out. Me and Tom Shaffner will be handling that, but I start pre-production process on that, doing a whole film, very Devil's Rejects meets Kill Bill, and just we're developing budgets and what the actual concept still is, but definitely it's going to be a wedding that goes awry.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. So going back to music and your love for music, who's been your top 3 musical artists?
Number 1, Mike Patton. Number 2, Trent Reznor. That number 3 spot. Oh, Jesus. I find myself, giving a lot of that option to like, a Fear Factory or a Dillinger Escape Plan, because they are so much, or a Hatebreed. There's so much a part of that stuff. But I'm going to have to just give it to, I'm going to have to give that to Jason Popson because of, being a fanboy, to him, to then becoming a best friend, to always wanting to be him, but then being able to find my own voice through that process. And he was, he had his influences being, Mike Patton as well. But I definitely, I've noticed even in my years, finding my voice as a singer now and a musician now, I'm in a really great, comfortable spot. I'm really happy with what's developing in my voice and all the different approaches I'm taking. But I do admit, I am, I'm JC, man. I could say it now. You know what I mean? Now that I'm not competing in a scene with him over the same three girls, I could say it out loud. You know what I mean? And it was like, we've, I still love and respect the man, but we've, our lives have ventured away from each other. So I can give, he's number 3, and I got to say number 4 is Dwid, and number 5 is Mark Hunter. Those people, there's so many. I was so lucky that I had these, my Hogwarts where it was Steve Felton, it was Dan Call, it was fucking Mark Hunter, it was Ben Schigel. I had so many dark artists that were teaching me how to do all this stuff. I was just so effing fortunate. So yeah, those are Mike Patton, Trent Reznor, and they switch depending on the mood or the alcohol.
Yeah. I one of my all-time favorite pictures, and it came up in my history not too long ago. I think it was like around the anniversary of Vanessa's funeral,
Mm-hmm.
and it was me, you, and Popson. We're all dressed up after leaving her funeral, hanging out at the bar at Hi-Fi Club, man.
Yeah, that was that. Okay, I'd like for you to send me that picture. That was a big night. I remember that night because me and Jason were just on such a really we're a good bromance that summer. But going through that process with him and going to that funeral, but that night we walked in on it was like a funk. It was all black funk band that was playing the Hi-Fi, that Foundry that night, and it was just us too. I remember it just being a handful of us.
Yeah,
the biggest regret of that night is I got so drunk that I blacked out and just left and went. And I didn't even say bye to all you guys. I had this great night and I just ninja vanished because I lived so close. I ended up going on other adventures because that's what that area was. It was just, if you wanted to find it, it was within a block or two. You know what I mean? And that was such a dangerous time in my life. I'm lucky that I didn't die, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I felt that if I didn't leave, like when my mother passed away, what I said was that would have been me. And I said it like that. Like if I didn't get out, that death would have been mine, so I'm very fortunate that, I got out. Send me that picture. That was a great day. It was a very good day.
Yeah, it was for sure. And I remember coming to your mom's funeral and getting this. Yeah. I think I still got I never empty my pockets after in my suits because I just hang them back up. And I found the seashell the other day or whatever. So.
Yeah.
But what class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school?
I would like to say they won't do it because they don't want they want everybody to. I want to say what I want, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I definitely think small business. Everybody should do a mock small business, and do it. Whether we live in the world of online business, but like running a class where somebody they get the option of learning how to earn a living on their own. That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? There's ways around it. You can get into certain vocational programs and stuff like that. But that I would like that, and or building have a class where throughout the class is just finances, surprises. You know what I mean? Okay, shit. You're building up your bank account. Okay, cool. You just got in a car accident. You know what I mean? And just teaching people how to be adults responsibly, financially, even though that's not what our economy wants. They want everybody to be irresponsible. Only the strong survive. So you have to go out of your way to learn all that stuff. So I definitely think everything's within a finance or business.
Yeah, I agree. And then 3 people who've inspired you or you can credit for making you the person you are today. I think you threw a lot of those names out there, but
the dark artists and stuff like that. On a personal level, I definitely think, like I said, my screen printer, Rick Mayer, in the early ages. He took and honed me into, being an adult, filled in the gaps that my father didn't realize he left open. My grandmother, definitely. And then I have to say a tie between my girlfriend Sarah and EC3. I'd have to say it's a tie. You know what I mean? Because I have to look at I look at the, the people around me. And I have another best friend named George that's down here that really helped me through a lot of the darkness and helped me stay strong and stay a good man through my divorce and helped hone me. And he let me, I was on financial rough times. And he let me stay with him it was supposed to be 2 months, ended because the pandemic ended up 6, but he gave me the incubator to create Control Your Narrative. So I didn't, during all that stuff, I had, I had someone sitting there next to me, helping me through all that stuff. So you really got to look at like, who are your best therapists? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you ask that kind of question.
Gotcha. And then, any causes or organizations that you support and you encourage others to check out?
Control Your Nutrition, Control Your Narrative. No, Fame Days is the metaverse app that we are on. It's a hologram cameo that you can put in your house. I really like to support them, because I also own shares in the company. But as far as like, to be honest, Adam Shearer and EC3 do most of the charity work. They're the ones in the forefront of all of our charity work, and that's from Adam's time in WWE. So to answer that, I'm actually, that's not even my department. So I usually just go, yes, that's what we're doing. So as far as I think, God, it's such a weird thing to ask me, because it's just not stuff I think about.
Gotcha.
I don't get caught up in that stuff. I just don't. You know what I mean? How about this? Support vet ticks, support any veterans. You know what I mean? I'm going to go with anybody fighting for the freedom for me to be an artist. Support that.
Awesome. And touching back on the Control Your Nutrition, I'm definitely going to want to follow up and talk to you guys a little bit more about that. I just saw it pop up, and I am very curious. I don't know if you knew that back in 2020, I had a heart attack and had to get a stent put in, and been trying, I tried the vegan thing and it just wasn't sustainable for me, but that's something that I'm looking into. So maybe I can, be a guinea pig or something.
And yeah. Look at EC3 has a wonderful app that has, that can work with even a basic exercise. But join.freec3.com. Promo code AWAKE gets your first month free, as the man behind the curtain yelled. But it's really could help your diet based. Control Your Nutrition also is a partnership we do with Dude Seasoning, and he's got a plethora of different seasoning options. We're also looking at starting a hot sauce line. I also have a CBD pain relief coming out too, called CYN Control Your Pain. CYN Pain, which should be a rub-on thing, and it works great. We gave out samples in Dallas. So it's about a healthy mind and healthy heart is all about healthy living, and we're seeing our opportunities to help branch and build that. And not everybody can look like a chiseled superhero like EC3, but you can definitely feel better about yourself if you follow all of what he tells you to do.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing
is a cult.
My main thing is just get healthier, stay healthy, stay around, walk my daughters down the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely, and I hope that happens in 15 years. You don't have to do it like in the next 3.
Yeah. I'm not rushing nothing, but
yeah.
Favorite toy as a child?
Wrestling action figures.
Of course.
And that's why I make fun of all the nostalgia dudes that collect them in their houses and stuff like that now, and stuff that they can't. They got to have every action figure from their childhood because their parents didn't buy it for them. And that's the psychology of most of them. I lived with I had a roommate for a while that did all that shit. And it's a whole nother culture of fandom that is, and you saw that in Free the Narrative 1 with Matt Cardona. Yeah. Matt Cardona played the role of that guy, the man-child, so much. But as a child, like, wrestling action figures, I was booking cards as soon as I could, you know what I mean? Different elements and stuff like that. And, my brothers had Jurassic Park toys. I were taking those toys and figuring out ways to put them in my wrestling world. So, you know, that's essentially when I became a wrestling promoter as a teenager into my, you know, early 20s. It was like, oh, I get to play with real life action figures. I now see them as real people because they're my friends. Other companies probably see them just as expensive action figures.
True. And then we've touched on it, but any message that you have for our military members currently serving overseas?
You know, after watching and going through it with both of my brothers, you know, number one, everything you're fighting for, that they tell you're fighting for is a lie. I definitely think that what they have to do is figure out why they're doing it for themselves and never get caught up in the bidding of people that don't even care. You're just a number in the system. That's what I'm for. That's what I always feel about it. Going through it with my brothers was really rough, but what they got, the better life that they got out of it and within college and as being men and stuff like that. It's very like everything you're going through over there, you're going through it for yourself and for your family at home. It's not for any, do not give the credit. Do not give it to any other God in some room somewhere else, because they only see you as a number. Do it for yourself. 100%.
Yeah. I don't know if, you know, Jake's mentioned, but me and him talk pretty often.
Yeah.
You know, been helping him out with quite a few things. So, always be, you know, your dad, your brothers are extended family to me, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely. And that's, yeah. You're, and like going through it with Jake, and I still go through it with Jake, you know what I mean? Josh seemed to be doing a lot better with his post life, but I think, and I'll say this to Jake, I think Jake went, because of certain mental illnesses, Jake went into the Army. The Army attracted him there, where Josh didn't have those mental illnesses, and that's why Josh went into that. So like Jake's gonna, he's a great father. He's doing really good. I think that this time of his life is the most important, because, you know, everything he thought he went to the military and was like, I'm gonna go to the military. Here's my 10-year plan. Here's my 12-year plan. A lot of people go in the military and they just build their plans, and I'm going to beat my plan all along. Then, you know, Jake, you know, his car accident almost kills him, or his bike accident almost kills him. There's all these things along the way. Yeah. You know, no one gets the military guys ready for what happens after. Where's your sense of purpose? You know what I mean? Post-Army. You know what I mean? Is it going to be in a government job? Is it going to be into, are you going to become a lawyer? Are you going to become a cop? You know what I mean? Are you going to continue to live your military days? You know, are you going to be the Vietnam vet at 70 years old, still wearing the hat at the Applebee's so someone can buy you the meal and get that attention? Are you going to be something more because of that experience? And that's where I think Jake's going through that finally in his 30s, where he has to make the decision to be something more than what he was. And that's all Control Your Narrative is. And that's what that's why I have a lot of military wrestling and people working with us, is because we're giving them that purpose that they lost by not being in the Army anymore. Or you should see this Marine that we got fighting for us, Bulletproof Troop. He's our Brock Lesnar. He's still MMA fighter, but he's got 6 wrestling matches and he's effing amazing. But he's former Marine and stuff. And being able to, he went to the fight world because he lost his 20s to the military. So like now he's a 33, 34-year-old. He's wild as fuck. He's living his 20s. It scares the shit out of me because I'm trying to stay a good man. Go do it. Well, I love the stories. Keep it up, bro. But I'm not getting in that Uber. But you know, see, and like that's so much where, you know, my advice is, you know, I guess it is like, you know, you need to make sure that you find your purpose through the experience. And it can't be that. You can't live that. You can't live the fact that you gave 4 or 8 years of your life to fight for somebody else's bankroll, and they gave you this opportunity to live a better life, and whether it's the financial perks or the educational perks, you have to utilize that and not live in it and become something more. You know what I mean?
Dude, you're speaking my language. I mean, I'm totally still at 49 years old. I'm working with my sponsor and some of my other friends in recovery about, you know, because I always roll back in my head to that military mindset with my family and everything else. And it's like, I'm still working through that process myself. So I love what you guys are doing to help others do that. And, man, glad we could make this happen, man. Glad we
Great.
could reconnect, and definitely looking forward to seeing you when you guys come to Cleveland here.
Yeah, I think you're really gonna like it. You're gonna have a couple proud Uncle Bailey moments, Uncle Bill moments. You're gonna have a lot of proud uncle moments. I definitely see it coming. You know
For
what
sure,
I mean?
man.
And fucking, we have a Roe on the show. We have Sarah Logan is on the show. So, you know, if I'm gonna ever, you know, work with a female that controls her narrative, let it be a Roe. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, it's been very therapeutic because of Ray and I, you know, fell out because of our life in wrestling. We didn't talk for 10 years. So I'm so proud of who he is now and what he's become with his family and his career. But like, you know, the vignette we just released for it, he filmed. I got to co-produce. The Firestorm guys got to reunite and co-produce, but it wasn't Firestorm. It was something. It's a whole new canvas, a whole new thing. And so, like, you know, you putting the word Roe on a screen was like, holy shit, I'm doing this again. But it's so new, you know. It's been very, very, very therapeutic. I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So everybody in the Cleveland area, Friday, May 13th at the Odeon.
Yep.
Go control your narrative.
Yeah, gonna control your narrative. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, Narrator, thanks for being on here with me. And one last favor before I let you go. Cut a promo ID for the show. Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Yeah. Hi, this is the Narrator, JC, aka Jedi, aka Jedediah Koszewski. You're listening to today's Boondoggle podcast.
Awesome, man.
Narrative. Yeah, cool.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot, man,
so much
for your time.
We'll keep on talking through text so I can get back to going. All right.
Yeah. We'll get all that stuff set up that we were talking about, and then have your other guy get a hold of me. I got some point of contact for him as well.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.